everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. My guest tonight is Lawrence Leyderman. Lawrence Leyderman. Lawrence doesn't just photograph the landscape, he lives it. He's an adventure photographer with a deep reverence for the natural world. He chases light from every edge of this country, from the gritty glow of New York City to the Badlands of Utah. The moon rises along the Florida coast to the vibrant, colorful terrain of Colorado. His work reflects a relentless pursuit of moments that most of us never get to see. Much of the year, you'll find him on the road, living out of his custom outfitted Jeep, immersed in the very environments he photographs. That lifestyle isn't just a backdrop, it's the heartbeat of his work and the foundation of the workshops and tours he leads, where learning happens in real time, under open skies, far from the expected. You can connect with Lawrence through his website at lawrencelederman.com. And if you're on Instagram, look for him at Overlanding Photography, and I'll link those in the show notes below. In his presentation, Landscape Photography, Night Skies, Dramatic Light and Storytelling, Lawrence will talk about what makes landscape photographs impactful. He'll explore how emotion, atmosphere, timing, composition, and storytelling come together to create images that do more than show a place. They'll make you feel something. Welcome back to the Happiness Hour, Lawrence.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Yeah, I look forward to sharing some new photos from my new planet of Jupiter, Florida, that I live in, and just sharing a bit of what I look for in a photograph and what I actually end up sharing. Because, we all shoot thousands and thousands, and I don't know how many photos we shoot, but then there's what we actually share. So the photos I'll be showing today are the ones that actually have been pulled out of those hundreds of thousands, the 0.0001%. No matter how good you get, there's always that little percentage that you actually share. But so should I share my screen? Is that okay?
Sure.
The
If you'd
presentation?
like, if you're ready, let's go.
Yeah, totally. I'll be sharing tonight about things that I love, which are basically dramatic light, night skies, and storytelling. That's kind of a part of most of my photography. I'm either shooting into dramatic light, which is the right times of day, and then at night, because I find night very interesting. I find that you can really create stories a lot differently, and you can play with light. You have more control over light, and you can get extra creative. So let me go on this journey with you. This photo that we're looking at right here is an 8-minute exposure of a car trail where I put my camera down and I drove for 8 minutes. I kind of timed it to see how long it would take. And then I took a separate photo of the Milky Way and I just blended that. But that's what you're looking at right here. And if you notice, there's a lot of balance and layers in this photo, and you'll notice that throughout. I really like to have a very balanced composition, and I do like layering. Here's my information. There's my email, Instagram, website, and on the left, that's just a pretty funny photo. It looks like I laid an egg. That's in the Alabama hills, right outside of the west. When you're driving west out of Death Valley, you go into the Alabama hills, Eastern Sierras, and that's where I laid my egg. So I used to basically, I see Linda laughing. Anyway, so before I settled down in Florida, I kind of lived out of my Jeep, and I just want to share with you the lifestyle I lived for years. Now I kind of chilled out, and I'm pretty happy to have chilled out. But the most alive I've ever felt was these few years where I did the following. I basically overlanded, which is had a Jeep that was fully outfitted with food, extra food, a fridge, extra fuel, all the cool things that let me just, be on the road for good periods of time where I can really get acquainted with the land that I was in, stay there for a few days, And that allowed me to get better photos because I really got in touch with the location. As you can see, that's my Jeep over there, the black Jeep. These are just the different kind of ways that you can overland here, but these are the different environments that I was in as I was traveling around. I was teaching workshops full time and basically bouncing around Utah, Colorado, Oregon, Washington. The West Coast really allows you to play more in this type of uh, in this way. And especially if it's too hot somewhere, you just go to a different location. Just Colorado and Utah, just being a few hours apart, you can go from the desert to the mountains and just keep changing it up however you like. Why I liked it was because it just gave me the freedom I needed. It gave me the ability to pursue my curiosity. I just followed the right weather. I followed whatever I wanted to follow. It was really fun. That's what I was doing before. I started with my dog that you can see her in the top right corner. That's Duchess. I'm actually bringing her down to Florida right now, but she traveled with me for a little while. That was fun. But yeah, so all these photos that you just saw, they all tell a story, right? And if you notice, the compositions are all balanced. Either the Jeep is pointing in the direction I'm going, or there's nothing really on the edges of the images. I kind of police my corners. Somehow there's balance in everything, whether it's the rule of thirds, whether it's a leading line, but I'm keeping your eye in the photo. That's my goal as I shoot. It's to keep the viewer in my photo and to also guide the viewer in the way I want to guide them. And, when you incorporate a road into the landscape, it really makes guiding the viewer's eye pretty easy. But, making it impactful is also important. The composition, like if you look at that left photo, you know, the message on that one is like focus on the road ahead. It's a little blurry in the foreground, but I titled that one focus on the road ahead. It's just kind of what I see happening over there. But yeah, so being on the road and taking photos of roads is kind of an easy way to tell a story of the journey of where you're going. Here's some more Jeep photos. Moving on. So one of the things I always ask myself when I'm showing any of my images is how did it feel to be there? I think that's what I'm always trying to convey, a feeling. So that comes alive, I guess, in the editing process. And dramatic light is something I'm always looking for, whether it be a beautiful day or a stormy day or an electric night, but all of that has dramatic light. And I might shoot a lot. I might not always be shooting into dramatic light, but it really turns out that that's kind of all that I share. I've noticed. Unless there's a powerful subject or a subject at all and dramatic light, I feel like the photo just never sees the light of day. Um, so one of the things that just adds an element of drama is a sunburst. It's an element of interest. It's a focal point. And if you notice, there's a sunburst in all of these. I tend to shoot directly towards the sun, and sometimes I'm shooting HDR where I'm bracketing. Sometimes I'm shooting single exposures. But actually, no, let me take a step back. I'm always shooting in HDR format when I'm shooting towards the sun or when there's a high dynamic range, but I don't always use all the frames with Lightroom's new denoise and all the new denoise programs. I find myself being able to choose one of the darker exposures and, just bringing that to life where I couldn't do that years ago. So sunbursts are a really an element that I use a lot in my photography. I look for the light. So in the bottom left, that's a really unusual photo. That's actually me in an airplane, and there's just like light going through the rain that's coming down. I'm kind of above the rain, but I'm looking for the light. Again, in that wave on the bottom right, if you notice, the sunlight is hitting the water particles, and that's a pretty fast shutter, but it's capturing that light that's hitting them. Above that, it was the coldest day of the year, actually, February 1st, 2026. It was like 15 or 20 degrees in Florida where I was, but the ocean was steaming, if you notice, and that was insane. If I didn't point towards the sun, you could not see the steam. So just looking for the light, it brings things to life. And I know you guys all know that. I'm just sharing all this to inspire you guys and, you know, kind of maybe there's something here that you'll see for yourselves. But I'm always looking for the light, as we all do. You can see that here in the top left picture. Just, the light is picking up the water and telling a story of its own. The water's crashing against the pier, and then the boat on the right. I situated myself on the right of that boat where the sun was hitting it and picking up the water particles in the air, casting that beautiful shadow. That boat actually was one morning I do art fairs all over the country, and I've been doing them a lot in Florida, but that morning where that boat was, I just drove across the state from Fort Myers to Florida, I mean to Jupiter. And when I got there, there was all these, I guess, border patrol, and that boat was some refugees that tried to come onto the coast. But anyway, it's about the light. It's not about that. The light looks really nice over there. And below that, again, backlit plants, and it just brings things to life. Here you see the use of light being a little different. I'm using light as a spotlight, and here's three totally different environments. One is a little cabin in the fall, one is a snowy mountaintop, and even in underwater photography, I was able to use a spotlight on a jellyfish. So always using spotlights if I can have them. Sometimes you'll have a very dark, dark sky, and the sun just made it through one little spot. And that moment might last, 10 seconds. And if you can get that, that's the magic right there. Looking for shadows. I love looking for shadows, hiding the suns and creating a whole new different work of art, changing the focus of something. That black and white photo on the right, the shadows leading you into the pier. So that's another thing to always look for. Side light. That's my dog in the bottom right, Duchess again. That was our first trip to California. And that was actually the first day she saw the beach or saw the ocean. But yeah, side light, when it's golden hour is really, really nice, especially when you can, create that dramatic look where you get a little bit of darkness on one side and light coming in from the other. Works on cityscapes as well, as you see on the top photo. That's New York City from, that's downtown New York, the Freedom Tower taken from New Jersey. You can also use it as a leading line. If you look at that clock tower on the right, it was the equinox that day. That's the Worth Avenue clock in Palm Beach. But that sunlight, that streak, that created a leading line that just leads you right into the clock. So, you know, that makes it easy to tell the story. And I'm using it again in the middle of the pier. I'm using the sun just to kind of lead you through the photo. I know exactly where your eye is starting and where it's going. And it's not leaving because of the way that this is designed. And then, just another one, just the way this is just another example of sun in the middle, just, telling the story. Last moment of the day. Bad weather is another thing that I just go for all the time. This is a drone photo. That's the Jupiter Inlet. This is where I live. Going back to moving to Florida, I never thought I could move to a place that didn't have mountains, that didn't have elevation, that didn't have seasons. And I have to tell you, it's been a very easy transition. I've had no problems whatsoever. The wildlife makes up for it. The wild weather makes up for it. I can go through a day that has a blue sky, a crazy, crazy storm, rainbows, lightning, you name it. And it fits my personality perfectly. It's actually very hard to stay indoors. Um, the wildlife by itself is just phenomenal. Anyway, so this is my drone up doing a pano of a shelf cloud that's coming out from the west side. I sold a lot of this print. People love this perspective when I fly the drone out and shoot back inland. Again, this is storm light, right? None of this would happen without storms. I love lightning. I chase lightning every chance I get. Sometimes Sometimes it's really scary. Sometimes it's far enough where I'm not scared at all. That image that you see on the right side, that lightning actually hit the water, which was not okay. That lightning was basically whiteout lightning. You don't see anything, but I was already in the car. So that photo that you see on the right, I was not outside anymore. It got a little bit too close for comfort. The photo on the left side, that blue one, I was on my phone Googling like how far can does lightning have to be for safety, especially being in water because the water was actually coming up to me. The way I shoot lightning is basically with an interval mode. I know you can have all these remotes and they're cool, and I have all of them. Also, I own every remote for lightning, but I just enjoy putting the camera in interval mode, less less wires, less to do. It's just really easy. All the cameras nowadays have interval mode built into them. So I'm either shooting with my Fuji GFX 100 megapixel camera or my Sony A7R5. More lightning. The photo on the left, I actually was in the photo speaking to my friend. I put my camera and my lens, that was a 150 millimeter Sony lens in the distance, and I walked into the heat lightning storm, and I have the craziest time lapse. But here you can see all these lightning bolts that I captured because Florida. It's fun. Again, I go out in storms. Another reason why I like going out during storms and bad weather is because everyone else stays home. It's lovely. It's very peaceful, you know? You get the whole beach to yourself, and it doesn't matter if it's high season or low season. It doesn't matter if the snowbirds are there or not. No one goes out. It's great. This is called Virga. It's when rain doesn't quite reach the ground, evaporates on the way down. This can only happen, after a storm or before a storm. But if you notice, nobody was out that day. And I got to see something and witness something that nobody else got to witness because I go out in this kind of weather. When the rain is sideways, I don't pull my camera out. There's some weather that I can't mess with, but if it's not too bad, I'll go out with a towel, some cloths, an umbrella. I come prepared, but the weather dictates if I can actually pull the camera out or not. So this is another moment that's just crazy, right? I was driving from Jupiter up to the Space Coast to photograph a rocket launch, and I see this insane cloud. So I pull over, and there was just this ray of light. It almost looked like an alien spaceship was coming down to kind of suck in that lifeguard tower. But the story here is insane, and I'll never forget this moment. But I live for stuff like this. I also had my drone up. So this is a four-shot pano. I do a lot of vertical panos when I shoot. Sometimes a wide angle lens just takes away from things in the distance. So to make a photo more impactful and more powerful, I prefer to use a longer lens and do a panoramic image. If I shot this with a 24 millimeter or a 16 millimeter versus like a 40 or whatever I was using, that cloud would be way smaller in comparison. This is like Death Valley and a really weird, scary looking light coming in. But again, it's dramatic. And this is the kind of stuff I like to share and show and shoot. Another local wild sky. I came out and did a vertical pano. This is probably a 23 millimeter lens. That's why it looks a little funky. But I just really enjoy going out in this weather. My favorite. Which brings me on to the night sky. So the Milky Way and the night sky have a special place in my heart, I guess. I still remember the first moment that I experienced silence. And like silence always reminds me of the darkness and the stars that came with it. I think I was in Las Vegas and I drove out to Lake Powell, and I just pulled over and stopped, and I opened the door and I couldn't believe it because I grew up in New York City, and I remember this was, I think, I think it was like maybe 15 years ago. And it just from that day on, I fell in love with the night sky, the quiet, the silence, the peace, and even how scary it feels. And I don't think that'll ever go away. Just like that feeling you get in darkness. So I just really love everything that comes with it and how you have to just be with yourself. If you're alone, that is. But either way, darkness really changed me and fundamentally changed my photography. Um, what do we have here? On the bottom right, we have a photo from Colorado during the fall. And in the left, that is one of the rocks that's by, what is that place called? That is, it's in Arizona on the way to the Grand Canyon. Anyway, so I always shoot the Milky Way if I can. I always time lapse it if possible. And just embracing the darkness has really helped me be comfortable with being outside. I love playing with light, as I mentioned. I love car trails. The photo on the left, I timed how long it would take for me to get the car burned in, how long it would take for me to drive. I would shoot the exposure and then get in the car, wait 2 minutes, and then drive for another 2 minutes. That's how I got that photo on the left. I love combining the Milky Way with car trails. That's Colorado also on the right. And then, creating a scene with a flashlight or people or anything is pretty cool at night. It's very dreamy, ethereal, surreal. I like clouds. Even that bottom left picture. By the way, all of these are in the Everglades National Park. All four of these images were taken down um, west of Miami. Basically, you leave a place called Homestead, and there's a road that leads you into Everglades National Park, and it's such an amazing place. But I wouldn't go there at this time anymore. I think my cutoff is April because the bugs. If you do go to the Everglades National Park, I recommend December through March. Boat trails, you can do just such random things. That's why I threw this in there because, you see car trails a lot, but boat trails are a thing too. This was taken after the 4th of July fireworks. That's why you have all that weird smoke in the sky. And that's why there's so many boats on the East River. Just more cool stuff that you only see at night, aurora and meteors, I caught the Milky Way. I mean, not the Milky Way, I'm sorry. I caught the Northern Lights in Florida. And that was in October or November. Nobody believed it was going to happen. So nobody went out except for me. It was like midnight. And it was 1 hour until the moon rose. And I was able to time lapse it. And then they got picked up. And then I ended up meeting a newscaster the next day. Uh, and it was pretty sweet. But I never thought in my life. I still actually can't believe it. It's still not real to me that I saw the Northern Lights in Florida. And yeah, it's and the picture in the top left is the Juno Beach Pier with the Northern Lights, and then there's the bottom right photo. It's an hour north of there. But yeah, you can just get creative, I'm putting these images up so you can just play around. You can get the dark side of the moon, as you can see next to the lighthouse. That was a 5% moon that night, but it was a crescent moon. But if you look at that photo, you're pretty much looking at the dark side. And then to the left of that was a lunar eclipse, and I was able to merge all the three different brackets to show you all the different colors during one of the phases. In the top photo, I was able to put an osprey in a setting moon, all planned. I found the nest. I found where I was going to go. It took me like 3 nights to do that. If you look at the bottom left, there's another osprey in a crescent moon. I do like to put birds in moons and suns. That's kind of become a thing. And I don't have any more in my presentation, but I do have a collection of birds actually just like that. And I just like to challenge myself. So That's what you're seeing throughout. I do this for me. I do it for fun. I don't do it for anyone else. I just do these as challenges. So I think what were we talking about, Linda, a moment ago as a challenge? Oh yeah, the the night flies, the lightning bugs with manatees, stars, and the springs. So like I'll create a vision in my head and I don't let it go until it becomes real. So just like the bird in the moon, like I had this vision, and then once it became reality, it really felt awesome. Moonlight is another thing to play with at night. It's just so much fun. Go out with people if you feel that it's not safe where you're going. Go with a friend or two. But full moon is like daylight, and you can get extra creative. Rocket launches are another thing that look really cool at night. So that photo on the right side is you can see the stars. It's an 8-minute exposure of a rocket launch from Cape Canaveral, and I'm 2 hours south. But again, it's just getting creative. I put my tripod in the water, as you can see there. Um, and you know what? If you notice on the right, those stars are circling around the North Star, which means that I can create one of those cool star trails where the concentric circle is going to be right above there. So maybe that's another challenge, right? So one day you might see me with a rocket launch, that lighthouse, these signs, and perfect circles because I shot for an hour or two and added star trails to this image. So this is like the way I think. I just create something in my head and I wait, and it's kind of in a list of things in the back of my brain that I want to shoot. Um, this is one of the most complicated astro photos I've taken. This is in a place called Gooseneck State Park. It's by the Moki Dugway by Mexican Hat. And a lot of people think it's Horseshoe Bend flipped on itself, and I can assure you it is not. But what I did here was this is a 16 millimeter vertical pano. The foreground was shot 2 hours earlier than the sky. The camera was left in the same location while I went to go have dinner. The only way you could ever get light in a canyon is when there's light above it. It's not possible to get any detail in that canyon at nighttime when the Milky Way is out. So for me to ever be able to show an image like this, it has to be captured at two different times. But that's what this is. This is 8 vertical photos for the sky and 8 vertical photos of the foreground, and then blended in Photoshop. Um, I do teach photo workshops. This year, I kind of took a little break, bring my dog back down to Florida in a few weeks. But I'm going to be putting up Utah, Colorado, Oregon workshops for the end of the year. Just email me if you're interested. But usually I do Colorado and Utah in September and October. This is one of my favorite landscapes. When I say Utah, I mean I like going to the Badlands of Utah. I do love Moab, but I like taking people to more weird places, more interesting places like these. I like to show people a whole nother planet. Not to say I won't go to Moab. I do love that place, but I'm sure that you guys have all been there. I don't know if you really need a guide to go to a place like that, but you can use instruction clearly. But going to a place like this is really interesting. This is like Hanksville, Canesville. If you notice, that is double arch in Moab in the center on the top there. And I went to Moab on a really, really, really cold day. Nobody was out. I think it was like almost 0 degrees. And because of that, I was able to do a 3 or 4 hour star trail in Arches National Park. Um, More of fun Utah, more Badlands. I go out there every time there's an eclipse, honestly. I find myself in the Badlands whenever there's a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse because I can find a place where I know damn well no one is going to be. I can always do it every single time. I can have my own eclipse. It's pretty cool. but it doesn't always line up that way. If it falls over Utah, this is pretty much where I go. Colorado's amazing, the opposite of where I live now, but I go there usually in the fall, and I go there also in July during the wildflower season. But I do love the landscape out there, especially when the snow comes down during the fall and the seasons converge. It's such a blast. And when COVID hit, I basically lived in those forests. I lived in the San Juans and the San Miguels. I was doing presentations for B&H Photo about basically, does this New Yorker survive living outdoors without a single night inside? So I did 150 nights outside without one hotel night, without sleeping at one friend's home or anything. I even had poison oak in Oregon and still slept in my Jeep tent. But but the point is I got to really know this area while doing that. More of the aspens, more of the yellow. I guess Colorado gold, right? This is Colorado gold. But everything going back to what we where we started, everything tells a story, everything has a balance, everything has a subject, everything, has a way that I want you to look through my images. So even though we're now looking at Utah, Colorado, just keep in mind all those things that we discussed earlier in all the photos I show. Again, here's the Milky Way. But even when I'm shooting the Milky Way, I'm not just shooting the Milky Way. I'm finding a compelling composition that's balanced first. Because who cares about just shooting the Milky Way? I mean, I don't want to sound, like who cares? It doesn't sound great, but it's much more fun to look at an image that has more elements, that has your eye kind of bouncing around. So I like water elements, I like car trails, I like mountaintops, I like getting low, I like putting flowers in the foreground, maybe a reflection of the stars in a lake. But taking a little bit of extra time is all you really need to do. Walking 50 extra feet or going somewhere a little bit off the beating path, and you'll have these kind of compelling images. Every single one of these is taken within 10 miles of each other, all in the Telluride, Ouray, Ridgway, Silverton region. Um, this slide is pretty much the same as the last one. Um, Oregon's fun. I like Oregon. The sea stacks are pretty cool. And it's just a whole nother environment to play around in. I like to challenge myself, and challenging myself in the Oregon landscape's great. Sometimes you won't ever see the sun, so you just have to accept that it can get really moody. This is Oregon, pretty fun place. Sunburst, sun scraping the sides, major panos. These are again vertical panos. But so what I do, guys, is I add a component to my tripod called a leveling base. And if you have a leveling base below your tripod head, which also should have a pan head which turns, the leveling base allows you to level your tripod in seconds. So you don't have to fumble around with, fixing your legs or whatnot. But if you guys are into shooting panoramic imagery, just look up something called a leveling base. And that goes between your tripod and your tripod head. And it is a game changer for panoramic photography. Death Valley and the Eastern Sierras are pretty cool. I like to combine them when I go there because of the how close they are and how different they are and how wild the contrast is between both of them. If you notice on the right side, you see those wild dunes, and then you see that image on the bottom with those snow-covered mountains. That's about an hour away from each other, and that's a day apart, right? So it's pretty awesome to know that you can get from Death Valley to the Eastern Sierras so quickly. And again, the light, everything's about the light. You see it scraping the mountains, you see it scraping those dunes, you see the light picking up the sand particles that are, in the sky from the wind. More Alabama Hills, Death Valley, more shadow play, more light play, star trails. On the right side there in the top right corner, that's an 8 minute um it's an 8 minute exposure on the front element. And then I think it's a bunch of star trails stacked for the sky. Again, all these images are right next to each other. You can see Death Valley and then you can see Alabama Hills. That picture in the bottom left where the road is coming out, that is the road that exits Death Valley, actually. And it's just a compressed telephoto image. More of the same, but just a really cool landscape. It took me a while to really fall in love with it. The first time I went to Death Valley, I didn't know what to make of it. It was so vast and everything was so far apart, but I fell in love with that place. And now I'm in South Florida and I live there and I've really taken it in, and here are some of the images that I've captured. And if you notice that bottom right, that little cave looking hole that's leading into the sun in the on the horizon, that's about a 5 inch gap that I was shooting through. Just shows you a little bit about perspective. But yeah, having the drone, having lighthouses, having water, having the wild weather, having mangroves, it allows for very dynamic photography out there, which really makes it fun for me. This is my life. Lightning, palm trees, the ocean, sunbursts, and a lot of these guys. There, you can see another image over there where I put an osprey's head in the moon. So that's another example of things I like to do. But yeah, so now I shoot crocodiles, I shoot hawks, I shoot osprey, I shoot all these things that I never thought I'd be shooting, and I'm in love. I'm in love with the wildlife, and it just doesn't stop. And here's some more images from the Everglades, more images of how I like to put the sun and the moon behind birds. The top right looks like a mug shot. It's kind of fun. But yeah, so photography is the bonus, adventure is the reward, and that's the life I love. That's the life I live. And this is my information. Oh, this is from a show, but let me go back to my information. And that's it, folks. If you have any questions, please let me know.
I have questions. Okay, hang on. Let's see. But do you recall, and maybe you'll need to keep that up just real for just a second, that page. Um, do you recall there was a pier that you took a photo of in Florida? Somebody wants to know where's that pier? Do you know which one that would have been?
This
And
pier,
yeah, I'm not sure which one she was referring to.
it could be Fort
Um,
Lauderdale.
yeah, there were quite a few peer-like
Yeah, there's a
images.
lot of piers here.
Yeah. Okay, that's
There's
okay. I'm not going to make you go backwards. And I'm sorry, Jennifer. She says
uh
she thinks it's the Jupiter pier. Was there
there
one?
there is no pier in Jupiter though, but there's a
Okay.
few close. It may be the Juno Beach Pier.
Okay. And I'm sorry, Jennifer. I should have stopped in, but I didn't see her.
Jennifer,
That's
do
what I,
you live
yeah.
in Florida?
Yeah, she said she does.
No, it's the Juno Beach Pier.
Y- Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let me go to the next question. On the spaceship photo, the cloud shot, Susan's curious. How long of an exposure did you use on that shot? On the spaceship cloud shot?
This one right here. Um, let's
I'm
see.
thinking that's got to be it.
Let's see. I'm not sure. I'll find out real quick though. Great.
Okay.
So that image that we're looking at right here
Yeah, there you go.
is this. So I think this was actually a handheld pano. And let's see what the settings were. Yeah, because it was handheld, so 1/500th of a second, f8, ISO 100 with a 45 millimeter lens. This is what I was trying to tell you guys earlier. You see how I shot this with a 45 and not a 23 or not
Mhm.
a 24? And only because I shot this in this panoramic format is the reason why it came out so powerful. I probably have a backup. I usually do that. What is this lens? No, this is just a 45. But yeah, so that's what that the result of that. I darkened it clearly, but this is these are the oops, I don't know why that came up. But yeah, that's that. 500th of a second, f8. F8 is my
Okay.
go-to if I can. It's as a landscape photographer, it's my happy place for sharpness and depth of field.
Okay. Um, Kathy wants to know, have you encountered dangerous wildlife at night?
Yes. Oh my God. Okay. So I lived on the road for so long and I never, ever, ever have. But in the Everglades National Park, I was trying to be so careful with snakes, right? I was trying to be as careful as I could possibly be, and I screwed up. One night, I moved my tripod 20 feet in the dark without turning my flashlight on to check the new location. And I learned that night never, ever, ever move without checking your surroundings in a place like Everglades because there's cottonmouths everywhere. They're the water moccasins, right? They are everywhere. And as I'm shooting, I heard the craziest sound. Like, I can't even explain the sound I heard. And I looked down with my flashlight, and a foot away from my foot is a snake with its mouth open, mad and ready to attack me. And that was a poisonous snake, and that was not okay. So I learned my lesson that night. Basically, never move without checking your surroundings at night in Florida.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm so freaked out. Okay, let me get you to take down your screen so we can see your happy face there. Another question for Susan. She's curious, how did you get the osprey in the moonshot?
You find a nest, use one of the apps that, you know, lines up like
Like the photo pill?
either Planet Pro or Photo Pills or the photographer's ephemeris, right? Or there's a lot of
Yep.
different apps that you can use. Everyone has their own preference, but get one of those. If you don't have one, I recommend Photo Pills, very easy. And then on YouTube, there's a lot of tutorials. You can use augmented reality. If you go to the location, you find a nest, you can play around and actually walk around, line it up with you have the sunrise, you have the sunset, you have the moonrise, you have the moonset. So you have all four of those to play with. Anything setting is easier than anything rising because you just have less time. And if the moon is setting or a sun is setting, it's just easier to find your location and easier. So if you've never done this before, I would recommend a setting moon or a setting sun, depending on your environment. But that's it really. And it took me a lot of times. It takes me a few times to get it. That my favorite moonshots maybe took me 3 or 4 times with the bird. But just finding a nest, finding a safe place to stand. You clearly need a telephoto lens. The bigger the lens, well, my goal was actually to try to make the bird fit about 75% to 80% inside the circumference of the moon. So that turned out to be, I forget the focal length, but it may have been 600 millimeters, but I remember being about 100 feet away. So you don't have to actually go that far. Maybe 100 to 200 feet away, about.
Okay. Um, Donna's question for you is you mentioned that you don't go out when it's raining sideways. So, but when you do go out in the rain, what steps do you take to protect your gear?
Well, I will go out when it's raining sideways, but I won't pull my camera out yet. I'll either be in my car or I'll be waiting because when the rain clears or moves, that's when it gets really beautiful. So I'm actually using apps. I'm following all of the movement of all the weather. So all the moisture I have calculated already where to go, how long to wait, if a rainbow's gonna pop out or not. I've gotten really good at calculating rainbows because of all these apps, knowing that this is gonna clear and it's gonna go this way, and the sun's gonna pop out because that's what the weather app says, and the rainstorm's gonna be right across from it, and the center of a rainbow can only be directly across from the center of the sun, and so that tells you how big a rainbow is, where it's gonna be. But I keep my Sony camera in my bag. Oh, let me show you something really quick. I have it right here. So Sony's have a weak spot right here. And so I keep tape up there, if you notice. And by having this secure, no moisture ever touches the electronics here. So I can actually shoot in bad conditions. Because if any of you guys have a Sony camera, I'm sure you've experienced that warning sign. But anyway, um, I keep a towel on hand. I keep washcloths on hand. And then there's something called Kim Tech scientific wipes. Those are basically like a tissue box for your camera. And if you guys enjoy going out in the rain, write this down. Kim Tech scientific wipes. Kim Tech. Because if you think about it, a towel soaks up water, and so do cloths, and they get useless after a while. And this does not. So if you're using these like tissues, it's like a tissue box. You can just pull out as many and you dry, they're always dry. You're not spreading moisture. That's another thing you probably experienced when you're using cloths. You're like spreading the moisture. You're not actually drying your lens. So having the Kimtech wipes and another thing, the other day I was shooting in rain. This is interesting. I was hiding behind a tree and the rain was sideways coming at me, but I'm hiding my camera behind the tree. The rain's coming at me, and I'm just sneaking out for a quick 1-2, right? I take 1-2 shots, my camera is already soaked, but then I dry it. And I was photographing the lighthouse. Sometimes you can't use umbrellas because the wind's too bad, or, sometimes no matter how clever you want to be, you cannot beat the wind or the rain. So in those situations, you can just take a quick shot or two and then dry your camera. Um, yeah, I mean, I'll always try to figure out a way to get out there. That's really
All
it.
right. Well, no, that's your thing. Okay, so one last question from Anne. If there's any other questions, type fast, ladies and gentlemen. Anne wants to know, how do you choose how to print your images, size, and material? That's a really good question, Anne.
Is that Sue? Who's that?
No, that's Anne. Anne.
Hi, Ann. Okay. So I printed using every material under the sun at this point, and I own a large format Canon printer that takes out the 44-inch rolls, right? So
Mhm.
the printer I own allows me to print on fine art paper and any kind of canvas. So outside of me being able to use canvas and paper, there's metal, there's acrylic, right? So those are kind of it. I don't know. There's other things that people print on like wood, but in general, there's acrylic, metal, paper, canvas. Um, for my art fairs, I used to print on metal. Well, when I first started, I only used acrylic. And then when you're using acrylic, there's multiple different kinds of acrylic. Like there's true life acrylic, anti-reflective acrylic, but the price point's very high. There's benefits and disadvantages of everything. So true life acrylic is very expensive. It's very heavy. It's hard to transport. If you're hanging it up once and you're never taking it down, great. If you're going from art show to art show, it's annoying, it's expensive. You're pricing your clients out of that, right? Then you have non-reflective, which is cheaper but still has all the same weight and all those issues. Metal is lighter, metal has less depth, metal has less three-dimensionality, metal is way more flimsy, way easier to damage. I hate moving metal around. And then there's your question is kind of it's hard to answer, but I'm gonna finish with my thought here. Metal and acrylic is very reflective. So you have to ask yourself, do you like reflective surfaces? Are you going to be in the sun? There's art fairs where I set up with metal and acrylic where you couldn't even see the art because it was so bright across from my booth. Do I like metal? Do I like acrylic? I'm pretty much over it. My taste has changed. I like paper and I like canvas. What I'm selling at the art fairs is different than what I enjoy. Um, when I print small, when something has a lot of little details, things are missed. So if it's one bird and one moon, sure, I can print it small. But if I have a landscape that needs to be 4 foot long, I'm never going to print it small. So going to touch on your question about the size, it really depends on what is in the photo. If a photo should not be printed small, I'd rather not print it small, even if somebody wants to buy it. I know that sounds crazy, but it doesn't deserve to be printed small if you're not seeing what I want you to see. So, that's another element. Lately, I've been really enjoying printing on canvas, stretching it myself, varnishing it myself. I enjoy the process. I enjoy using Hahnemühle paper. So what I've been selling is not the same thing I like myself, and that's pretty much the answer. I now am switching to selling only canvas in the future.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to let you answer this and I'm going to follow up with something. But Jennifer's question is, how do you do a panorama with a camera? She only knows how to take one with a cell phone.
So
If you can,
I
so
I could cover that in less than a minute.
can you cover it? Okay, because there's a bonus after this. So I'll let you answer it and then y'all get your pencils ready because I
So
found something that I'm going to share. Go
there's a
ahead.
lot of ways to shoot a panoramic image perfectly. Um, but in general, you're basically taking your camera and you're taking single images and you're moving it a certain degree over and over with a certain amount of overlap. The overlap should be between 30 and 50%. I like to overlap about 50%, right? And then once you do all that, you put everything into Lightroom or another program that can merge them. All you have to do is highlight that set of images, right click, and there's an option for panoramic stitching, and you're done. And I personally like to shoot my panoramic images vertically with the camera because that's the whole point, right? The whole point of me shooting panoramic images is so I can use a tighter focal length than a wider focal length so that I'm not just making things that are supposed to be bigger, small in the background. Um, but that's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm shooting multiple images, usually on a tripod, and there's certain tripod heads that are called panoramic heads, and those panoramic heads. Oh, and by the way, I think my last presentation or two presentations ago with Linda is
Give me
exactly
a second.
about shooting panoramic imagery, and it goes into all the details of all the hardware.
Yes. All right. That was where I'm like, get your pencils ready. Because I thought, oh my gosh, he's already covered this. And you did it in a session we were not, it was like a bonus that you spent a lot of time walking us through this. This was not something that because I was trying to figure out where it was. Lawrence has done 4 presentations, not counting tonight. Um, but if you look at session 99. The title was Overlanding Photography Part 2, which was fantastic. And then towards the end of that session, he threw in this panorama like tutorial that we I was not expecting, and I thought this should be its own thing, and I almost like extracted it out, but it's there. And so not Anne, that was who asked for that. I'm sorry. That was Jennifer. So check that out. So session 99 on the YouTube channel. All right. I like this question, and I think I know some of it because you and I've talked a lot. But can you share? Anne wants to know. Can you tell us about your photographic education and about your early career and maybe other careers you've had? Ooh,
Okay, sure, yeah,
dig
totally.
in.
Um, so before photography, well, I went to college for finance, but I never was that kind of person that can like sit down and work on spreadsheets. So anyway, I went somehow into watch design, watch manufacturing, and while I was doing that, my favorite part was the photography and just creating all the imagery. And I somehow found photography through watchmaking, and I was doing all this macro photography of the watch parts, and that kind of got me to pick up a camera. And then it turned into me only liking photography and not watches anymore. And then I decided just to like drop that whole business and hit the road with my dog and see how that worked out. So I went from watches to my dog traveling. But the thing was I needed to make money. So I had to figure out how to make money as a photographer. And so I did everything you can think of at the beginning. I shot events, I shot portraits, wedding. I shot everything under the sun. And then I realized I don't like photographing people. It's just too stressful for me. It's not just it doesn't connect with me the way I like. So I got into real estate photography. And that's what I did for a very long time, for years. And in real estate photography and architectural photography, you're dealing with a lot of high dynamic range situations, and you're bracketing every single time. And every single thing you're doing has to do with multiple exposures, has to do with balancing a room, has to do with making it look interesting, making it look inviting. Make like when you're selling a home, you want the viewer to have a certain feeling. So the same thing I'm doing now in landscape photography, I can actually trace back to my real estate and architectural photography because I was trying to balance a scene of very high dynamic light and make you feel a certain way in the space. So that's what I was doing then, which then transitioned into my landscape photography full time. I started traveling, teaching workshops, and I now I'm teaching in Florida. I did open a school locally, but then I closed the school because I didn't want to bring too many photographers into my neighborhood. So I might be opening a school eventually somewhere else, maybe like West Palm Beach. I am doing a lot of private tutoring with Lightroom, Photoshop. I do have a lot of private students. I teach in recreational centers in different areas of Palm Beach County. I'm putting my new workshop calendar up again soon, which is going to have Colorado, Utah, and Oregon on it pretty much. Uh, that's about it at the moment. I kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much it. And if you reach out to me and let me know that you're interested in something, I'll get back in touch with you once I get everything all set.
Well, I had told you when I was on your website yesterday, I was trying to figure it, I just can't pull it off. But if you guys have any interest in photographing the wildflowers in Colorado or the color, fall color in Colorado, I noticed he had those two workshops. I believe you had even descriptions for
Mhm.
both of them up. So, um, check his website out. If you're in the Florida area, look him up, take a class from him. I adore you, Lawrence, and thank you so much for coming and doing this.
Can I share one more last thing?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to share my screen really quick. I'm sorry. This is pretty cool.
Okay. And while you
Share.
You open that up, I'm going to tell Jennifer. She's asking me, will this presentation be available for her to share with her photography club? And the answer is yes. It'll be up on Friday evening. I always post the recordings on Friday at 6 p.m. and that's on my YouTube channel, which is Linda Nickell Happiness Hour, and that's on YouTube. Um, you can also find it if you go when you signed in tonight. If you just scroll a little further down, you'll see previous sessions and you can click on anything that's in red and you'll get straight to the YouTube channel. So do us a favor, tell your photography club about what we're doing here, and anybody with the link is welcome to join us. All right, it's yours, Lawrence. You up?
You can see my screen, right, guys?
Yes.
All right. So now I'm finally doing something really cool and very
Oh.
meaningful. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually I do a lot of turtle photography now that I live in Florida. I totally forgot to mention this. I work with Loggerhead Marine Center, and now I'm on call with the leatherback research team. So they call me like 2 in the morning, midnight, whenever they find these leatherbacks, and I help with the documenting of what they're doing with the turtles. And so it's just cool to see the transition of where things have come. I never in my life thought that these beautiful creatures would be a part of my life. But the fact that my love of nature, my love of wildlife, my love of conservation, and then now with my love of night photography have all come together. So I just wanted to share that because this is new to me. And this is just like so mind blowing and so like just touches my heart. So I just wanted to share that at the end of this.
So if you guys aren't following him on Instagram, um, just follow him just for his My Stories alone. I knew you were doing the turtles because I'd seen so many of the release footage that you'd put out, and just that's definitely something I would love to experience. So I'm glad they found you, and I'm glad that your photography is going to make a difference for these leatherbacks. All right, Lawrence, thank you so much for doing this one more time for me. Well, it's for not just for me, but for everybody here in the room and for the audience that will watch this on YouTube. All right, y'all hang on. We'll come back in just a second, but let me close this session out. All right, next week, OM System Ambassador Lisa Kuchara will be here to share her presentation, Getting Better Nature Photos Straight Out of the Camera. So have a nice night, and we'll see you next week.